A long time ago in a land far away, there was a beautiful queen who had a really big problem. You see, there was a law that had just been passed that said that all of her people would be massacred on a certain day. Esther had no idea what to do. And then Mordecai looked at her and said, "You have to talk to the king." Esther was terrified. She knew that if she went to the king uninvited, she could be imprisoned or worse, executed. Now, the king didn't have a good track record of dealing with his queen, so she had a good reason to be worried. But then she remembered the source of her strength. And she said, "We got to pray." And so Esther committed to fasting and praying for 3 days before she talked to the king. And during those 3 days of prayer, God spoke to her heart. And he told her that everything would be okay. He told her that he would give her the words to say. He told her that he would give her perfect timing. And during those 3 days, Esther put on Jesus. She put on that robe of light. She believed that God's got this in such a powerful way that when she walked into the throne room and the king saw her, he didn't just see a beautiful woman. He didn't just see her outsides. He sensed a power and a calmness and a confidence that was coming from the inside of her. And that came from those 3 days of prayer. And he was overcome, and he said, "I'll give you whatever you want." And God spoke to Esther's heart. And instead of asking for him to save her family, she invited him to a banquet. And at the end of that banquet, the king again said, "I'll give you whatever you want." And God spoke to Esther's heart. And instead of asking for him to save her people, she said, "I want you to come to another banquet." Now, God's timing is perfect timing, because that night, the king couldn't sleep. And so he had them read a book of the history of his kingdom, and the scribe turned to a page that talked about how Mordecai saved the king's life. And the king said, "What have we done for this man?" And the scribe looked at the notes and said, "Well, you haven't done anything." And so the king had Haman do something amazing for Mordecai. And then that next day, there's another feast. And at the end of the feast, the king is feeling really good. And he says, "Esther, my love, what can I do for you?" And then she asked for him to save her life, to save the lives of her people. And he says, "Who would do this?" And she points to Haman. God's timing is perfect, and he knew that the king would be in the perfect place to do the right thing at the moment when Esther asked. And see, that's what those 3 days of prayer were all about. God was going to save Esther and her people no matter what. Those 3 days of prayer were to help Esther come into the right place so she could walk into that crisis with confidence. Now, right now, we are all quarantined. And when we look at the news and our social media and our jobs and our bank accounts and our health, it's scary. And like Esther, we can feel kind of panicked and like, I don't know what to do right now. And I don't know what you should do right now, what the specific answer to your question or your problem is right now. But God does. So how do we get the answer? How do we get the confidence? How do we put on that robe of light? We just have to be like Esther and pray. Spend time with God, because you're going to have some extra time on your hands. And this time isn't to tell God what he needs to do. It's to just sit and look at him and see how good God is and how powerful God is, to look up. The children of Israel, when they were walking through the wilderness, even though they were in a desert, every time they looked up, they could see a cloud of God's very presence giving them shade. And the children of Israel who looked up didn't freak out when they ran out of water or food, or when the spies came back and told them there were giants in the land. They looked up and they were like, God's got this. But the people who didn't look up, the people who looked down at their problems, at their stresses, they freaked out. I freak out a lot. And when I come out of a freak out moment, God says, look up. And so my challenge to myself and to you today is look up. Pray. Talk to God about what's on your heart. Talk to him. Ask him for help. Ask him for solutions. Ask him for peace. Because no matter what happens with this virus, God's got this. The same God who took care of Esther will take care of you. The same God who listened to Esther will listen to you. The same God who gave Esther the quiet courage that she needed will give it to you. Remember, God's got this.